The illusion of control. Do global elites really rule the world? Introduction. The eternal question. Since the dawn of civilization, power has always been concentrated in the hands of a few. Kings, emperors, popes, and now billionaires and technocrats all have held extraordinary influence over the course of history. But is there a single unified force guiding the world from behind the scenes, or is this just a compelling illusion that helps us make sense of a chaotic reality? From the Rothschild family to the Bilderberg Group, from the World Economic Forum to the Federal Reserve, whispers of a hidden hand controlling global events have persisted for centuries. In this deep dive, we'll explore the most compelling evidence for and against the idea that a small elite dictates the fate of nations, economies, and even the minds of billions. Part 1. The case for elite control. Many believe that power is not just concentrated, it is deliberately maintained by a small, interconnected group that benefits from global inequality and division. Let's examine how elites exert influence over different aspects of society. 1. Economic power, the invisible empire. The phrase, "follow the money," is a fundamental principle in understanding power dynamics. Consider this. The top 1% of the world's population owns more than half of all global wealth. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street control over $20 trillion in assets, holding stakes in almost every major corporation, from big tech to oil companies. Major banks and financial institutions determine the fate of entire countries through debt, currency manipulation, and interest rates. Economic power leads to policy control. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, Wall Street was bailed out, while millions of ordinary people lost their homes and jobs. The individuals responsible for the collapse did not face consequences. Instead, they became richer. If the global economy is essentially controlled by a handful of corporations and banks, do we really live in a free market? Or is the illusion of economic choice just another method of control? 2. Political influence, elections or selections. Elections are often portrayed as the cornerstone of democracy, but many argue they are merely a theater for the public, a spectacle where real power remains behind the curtain. Lobbying and corporate influence. The largest corporations and billionaires fund political campaigns, ensuring that candidates serve their interests rather than the people's. Unelected power. Institutions like the World Economic Forum, WEF, IMF, and Federal Reserve make critical decisions that affect billions, yet the public has no say in their leadership. Secret meetings. The Bilderberg Group and other elite gatherings bring together the most powerful people in the world, without public transparency. Even presidents and prime ministers, despite their official power, often answer to forces greater than themselves, whether they be corporate donors, intelligence agencies, or multinational organizations. Is democracy just an illusion of choice, while the real decisions are made elsewhere? 3. Media and information control, shaping perception. It is often said, those who control the narrative control reality. A small handful of corporations own nearly all major media outlets worldwide. Whether it's CNN, Fox News, the BBC, or the New York Times, nearly every news network is owned by the same financial entities. But control over information goes beyond traditional media. Social media algorithms, developed by companies like Facebook, Meta, Google, and Twitter X, determine what we see, what trends, and what gets suppressed. Censorship and deplatforming. Voices that challenge the mainstream narrative can be shadow banned, demonetized, or outright silenced. Psychological manipulation. Social media is designed to keep people angry, divided, and emotionally manipulated, ensuring they remain distracted and controlled. Propaganda and war narratives. Throughout history, media has been used to justify wars, economic policies, and political agendas, often at the expense of the truth. With AI-driven surveillance and mass data collection, the ability to manipulate public thought has never been stronger. 4. Technological control and the digital prison. Technology is often presented as a tool of liberation, but in many ways, it has become a tool of enslavement. Mass surveillance, Governments and corporations track everything: your location, conversations, and online activity. Social credit systems. Inspired by China's system, Western countries are beginning to experiment with ways to tie personal behavior to access to services. Digital currencies. With the rise of central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, governments could have complete control over financial transactions, making it easier to freeze dissenters' accounts. The smartphone in your pocket is not just a communication device. It is a tracking device, a psychological tool, and a window into your subconscious behavior. Part 2. The case for collective illusion. While the idea of total elite control is compelling, many argue that the world is far too chaotic for any single group to maintain absolute power. 1. Power struggles among the elites. Elites may share common interests, but they are not always united. History is full of infighting among the ruling class. Rather than a single, unified elite, what if the world is actually controlled by competing factions, constantly vying for influence? Conclusion: a self-fulfilling prophecy? So, do global elites rule the world? The answer may be more complex than we think. White heavy check mark: they have massive influence, but not total control. White heavy check mark: they shape narratives, but revolutions still happen. White heavy check mark: they exploit systems, but the system itself is fragile. Ultimately, the belief in elite omnipotence can be more dangerous than their actual power. If people assume resistance is futile, they become passive, and that is the greatest victory for those in power. The real question is, do we challenge the system, or do we continue playing by its rules? Speech balloon: what do you think? Do global elites secretly control everything, or is the world too unpredictable for that? Let's discuss in the comments. Loudspeaker: if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to white heavy check mark like this video to support this type of content. White heavy check mark subscribe for more eye-opening discussions. White heavy check mark turn on the bell so you never miss an upload.